you're trying to get down to the truth. What will actually help our state? What are the key issues that are at the forefront of the conversation? And what policies could be enacted to make those issues better for the people who live here? Welcome back to the California Conversation. I'm Tess Abraham. Since November, how often have you been thinking about the upcoming 2026 midterm election? Probably not very much. After all, we just had a major presidential election that takes a lot of energy to plan, prepare, research, and go vote for, and now we're adjusting to a new presidential administration. There's so much in the news lately between California and the federal government to keep up with. Why in the world would we be thinking about an election that's still over a year and a half away? That is a great question, and I would love to convince you today that you should be taking interest in the governor's race this early, that you should be evaluating candidates, and that we should be consolidating support around good conservatives now, opposed to only thinking about it a few months before it really matters when the general election rolls around. But before we get started, please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you stay up to date on all things California politics. Okay, so what is the current state of the California race for governor? Is there really much to report on? I mean, again, the midterms are in 2026. It's currently 2025. What could possibly be going on? Would you be surprised to learn that some candidates have been in the race since 2023? Literally, candidates announced their campaigns in 2023. So technically, I'm behind in reporting on this. There are already multiple candidates in the race, and most of them are Democrats. So far, there are 5 prominent Democrats running, and there are several others who it's expected that they will join the race at some point, but are yet to announce. The main question on the minds of voters who are thinking about this election is, will Kamala Harris run for governor of California?
No!
It's tricky, right? Will she run for governor of California in 2026, or will she gear up for another presidential run in 2028? Still up in the air, and recently I heard that she gave herself a deadline of the end of summer, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But if she joins the race or not will really impact candidates' chances, as she's polling really strongly, especially among Democrat primary voters. So what about conservatives? Are there any conservatives who are going to step up and challenge all of these Democrats who are already in the race? Yes, that brings us to exciting news, which is that the sheriff of Riverside County, Chad Bianco, who is actually prominent and well known among conservatives already in California, announced his campaign back in February that he would be running for governor of California. He is who I want to spend the rest of this episode on today. But let's pull back for just a moment, because I want to highlight that the most important thing that you could ever know about a candidate is their policy positions. If a candidate can't articulate the issues in our state because they're not seeing with clear eyes of what the issues are, or if they can't detail out a plan of how they will attack those issues, then you can't vote for that candidate. After all, a candidate is supposed to represent your interests. If you don't know what they stand for, if you don't know what they would do in our state, you can't vote for them because you don't know that they will adequately represent you. So it's really important, even over a year and a half away, to be looking at candidates and evaluating their platforms. If they just give you platitudes or broad statements or buzzwords,
What I call an opportunity economy.
you might need to actually consider, do they know what they're talking about? Do they have a solid plan, or are they just trying to get elected? I am sure that as the election actually draws nearer, that we will see a lot of mudslinging, downright gossip, attacks on characters, old tweets resurfacing even. That usually happens, and especially with conservative candidates. But again, what's important about a candidate is to keep the main thing the main thing. What are their policy positions? What will they actually do if they are elected to the office that they are running for? So let's fly through a few of the big ticket items. First up, cost of living. This is no surprise. I am sure that most of us who live in California would cite cost of living as our number one issue. And according to a recent poll, 24% of Californians did just that. So what would Chad Bianco do to address the cost of living here? His plans outlined 3 main things: lowering taxes, cutting regulations, and lowering the price of gas. And when you think about it, those really are the key important issues to making life more affordable here. Yes, there's a lot more that you could look at when it comes to the price of things in the grocery store, but really taxes are a main burden on residents of California. California is ranked 5th in the entire nation for total tax burden, and we are ranked number 1 across the nation for individual income tax burden. So if we were able to lower those taxes on individuals, you would be taking more money home each pay period. Additionally, when it comes to gas, it's important to note that California is the #1 state, again, in the entire nation for the cost of gas. Why? A lot of it has to do with regulations. California has a lot of environmental regulations about the type of gas that we can burn here, and that reduces supply. What Bianco wants to do is he wants to unleash a lot of the natural resources that we have in California, especially in Kern County, and drill our own oil here. Instead of importing oil at a higher cost, we could actually have our own oil made here, which means we'd have increased supply and would lower the costs. Plus, to full circle back to what we talked about with taxes, gas in California has a lot of taxes. We have a sales tax, we have an excise tax, and then we have the federal tax. And that just all piles up to make gas a lot more expensive, which is why it's often double what it would be in states like Texas, Arizona, other states where you cross the border and you know you want to get gas there because it's a lot cheaper. So Bianco wants to cut those regulations. He wants to increase the supply of gas. And that would go, again, a long way to families who are commuting, parents who commute to their jobs, or you just have to drive your kids to school or whatnot. It really adds up when you're paying over $100 every time you go to the gas station if we could lower those prices. That is for the overall economy, like on the state level. But another issue related to the economy is specifically the cost of housing. Cost of housing is a huge crisis across California, and the main issue is that we are a state with high demand and low supply. So when you have low supply of housing, but a lot of people want to live here, then that drives up the prices of housing. Makes sense. Why is there such low supply, though? That is because of burdensome regulations in California that really don't incentivize developers from building here. Additionally, the process to develop housing can take between 7 and 10 years in California, which is really high compared to other states. So what Bianco wants to do is he wants to once again cut regulation to incentivize housing development to bring up more supply of housing, which then will drive down the ultimate costs.
All right.
The ways he wants to do that tangibly is by expediting approvals on housing projects and by cutting down CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, because in CEQA, it literally mandates what type of building materials that you have to use when developing housing, and surprise, surprise, those materials are much more expensive. Hopefully, by cutting the red tape and eliminating burdensome regulations, we'll have more housing in the state, which will make it less expensive to live here, which sounds like a great plan to me. While Bianco is trying to reduce regulations to help California meet its housing goals, you can meet your nutritional goals with companies like We Heart Nutrition. We Heart Nutrition is a family-owned company that produces high-quality, research-backed supplements for people who want to live well and support their health. What they're really committed to is giving back to support life in every way possible. This means that 10% of their sales go directly towards supporting moms and babies in pregnancy crisis centers across the United States. They are pro-baby, pro-mom, pro-life, and American-owned. It just really doesn't get better than that. So if you're looking for a supplement company that's committed to quality and integrity and who shares your values, you should use my discount code TESSABRAHAM to get 20% off your order. They have all the essentials for both men and women, so you should check them out today. Use my link below or use my discount code TESSABRAHAM at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. You'll support a company that shares your values. You'll support women and babies in need, and you will support this show. Next issue is water supply. This has been a big one in the media ever since the wildfires broke out back in January. But water supply impacts way more than just putting out wildfires. It also has everything to do with supporting farmers and the agriculture that's grown in our state and then used all across our country. Bianco first wants to ensure that farmers have the water allocation that they need. The 2025 Central Valley Project allocation was announced in February, and it said that Central Valley farmers would get 35% of their water allocation. If that feels low, it's because it is low. Farmers need 75% or upward of the water allocation, and they just have not been getting that in recent years within California. The reason for this is that over 50% of the water supply goes toward environmental purposes. So what that means is it goes toward rivers or wetlands to make sure that you can keep the water supply high enough to preserve certain species of fish or other wildlife. And this isn't bad in and of itself. I don't want all the fish to go extinct either, but at the same time, we've shifted slowly in California to prioritizing this wildlife and prioritizing the environment over prioritizing farmers who just need the water to maintain their farms. What Bianco would do is once again roll back regulations on pumping of groundwater and on where this water supply goes in order to ensure that farmers are the first priority. And then after farmers, whatever is left over can then go into environmental purposes, which feels like it makes sense to me. Then Bianco supports making greater investment into water storage. We've seen this not be a priority of the current governor because Gavin Newsom supported tearing down certain dams across the California-Oregon border and even down into Southern California where we really need water. So Bianco wants to invest in building new dams, in building reservoirs that taxpayers actually voted for, and making sure that we're not pushing valuable water either collected from rainwater or pumped from groundwater back into the ocean, but that we're storing it for years of drought and for major wildfires like we saw this year. Then there's public safety. Obviously, coming from a law enforcement background and being sheriff for the past 8 years, Bianco really knows about this topic and it's near and dear to his heart. Bianco really wants to be tough on crime. He wants to go against the defunding police initiatives that we've seen pop up over the past 5 years, and he wants to make sure that police have the staffing, resources, funding, and training that they need to be effective in our state. This is what voters voted for in 2024. We voted for Proposition 36, which imposed harsher penalties on reoffenders for things like theft or drug crimes, and that's because Californians are tired of seeing shoplifting. They're tired of seeing rising crime. Californians want to feel safe, and Bianco knows how to make that happen because he's been making that happen in Riverside County. Last but certainly not least, Bianco wants to stop the California High-Speed Rail Project. He wants to audit where all the money has gone over the past however many, it's been so many years, so we've been pouring money into this thing, and see where it has gone, and then ensure that any remaining funds will be poured into actual, tangible projects that will make your life better, like freeway expansions or other road construction. So those are just some of the main policy positions that Bianco takes, but you should check out his website because he has clearly detailed his policy positions on all major topics and see where he stands, what his policy positions are, and if they are in line with your values and what you see as being helpful to the state of California. Now, all of that might sound wonderful to you, especially if you are a conservative in deep blue California, but you may be wondering, 1, does it really matter when a conservative runs for governor here? And 2, why should we care this early? I want to answer both of those questions for you. Just because our state has historically been liberal, and even if the majority is still voting that way, your vote still matters and being informed still matters. Why? Well, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's about pursuing truth. Policy positions are just trying to see if what candidates say they want to do will actually make a difference to the issues that they're pointing out. So if a candidate says that the housing crisis is a major issue in California, then you want to look at what they say they're going to do about it and see if it lines up with reality of if it will help. If they propose policies that are really vague and can't give you a detailed plan, then of course you're going to think twice about voting for them. Additionally, if they give you policies that have already been enacted and have proven to fail, then you also probably don't want to vote for them. That's because you're trying to get down to the truth. What will actually help our state? What are the key issues that are at the forefront of the conversation? And what policies could be enacted to make those issues better for the people who live here? So regardless of how the majority has voted or continues to plan to vote, the facts on the ground don't change. Californians need to be informed about why gas prices are so high in their state, why the cost of living is so expensive, why when it comes to crime, things have risen over the past certain years when certain legislation like Proposition 47 was enacted. Those are real life things that they need to realize the implications of those policy that have made life what it is in California. So regardless of the odds, it always matters because ultimately at the end of the day, truth matters and we can't give up on seeking and promoting what is true. Plus, time and truth go hand in hand, meaning that the longer that bad policy has been enacted for, the easier it is to expose. And we've been seeing this shift. In the 2024 election, we saw sizable gains even in the California legislature. We flipped 3 previously Democrat seats to Republican seats, which might seem small, but change starts small and then it adds up over the years. Additionally, 10 counties across California flipped their vote from Biden in 2020 to Trump in 2024. That's huge. And just to add, every county in San Francisco, which is super liberal, saw a shift more toward Donald Trump than they saw toward Joe Biden in 2020. Those are huge changes, and we need to be monopolizing on and building momentum upon those changes that we're already seeing in the minds of voters. So, does it matter? Yes, it matters no matter if you're in a conservative state, a swing state, or a deep blue state like California. And lastly, why should we care this early? Well, because again, when it comes to being informed, you want to give yourself time. You want to know what people like Bianco or other candidates stand for. You have time now to research what they stand for, to be informed on it, and then to be able to tell people who ask you who you're voting for and why you're voting for them. It takes time to change the public opinion, which means if we wait 1 month, 2 months, 6 months before the general election, it might already be too late to sway enough voters our way. But we have time right now to, again, build that momentum that we saw in 2024 to have voters want to make real effective change in our state, to point out why our state has been failing in the ways that it's been failing, and to show them a better option, like candidate Bianco. So, at the end of the day, real change starts with you. Let's get to work. If you want more information about the state of the governor race in California, or if you want more information about Sheriff Bianco's policy positions, you should check out episode 30 of my full-length podcast linked below. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope it was helpful for you as you navigate life in our state and that you learned something new. You can follow me on social media at It's Tess Abraham, and I'll see you back here next time for another episode of the California Conversation.